Hey, hey, hey. What's going on, everybody? This is Have You Seen This? It's a show hosted by me and my friend Snark over here. We're going to talk some TV news. We're going to talk about just random TV shows that we've been watching throughout the course of the week. And for our main topic later on, we're going to kind of break down a sort of top 10 list of our favorite comedies. I mean, obviously, there are so many, and I couldn't even bring myself to cut it to a type of comedy because I wanted to talk about so many different things. But yeah, so it's a top 10, let's say.
The list is neither correct nor incorrect. It's just what
Exactly.
we were thinking about at the exact time we wrote this down.
Yeah, in the moment, any of those shows could move up and down depending on which one you're currently rewatching. That tends to go up higher on the list. So how you doing tonight, Snark?
I'm doing well. Last week I was a little COVID-y. This week I feel much better. I didn't get it all too bad. At least, thank goodness. I was just got dizzy and a little sleepy, and that's about it. And a bit of a sinus infection, but took some pills, cleared right up, and ready to go this week. I actually feel really good this week, which is surprising. It's the first time in a while I felt this well. So everybody, moral of the story: get COVID, feel better.
And yeah, so pretty much the same. I didn't actually have it, but I was in isolation for all of last week. So just getting back into the groove of going to work and doing a full shift.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting.
You work with a
But
bunch of people there?
was that?
Do you work with a lot of people at your job? Are you
No,
people? No. Oh, that's all.
no, and I work the overnight shift. We're only like 4 people in the whole building when we're there. So really not a lot.
Good.
But yeah. So we're not here to talk about random work in Canada.
Our chance to catch up.
We're here to talk about television shows we can't watch because we're in Canada.
That's true. That's right.
Yeah. So as we move into our news section, the first thing I wanted to bring up is How I Met Your Father premieres tonight or today. I can't remember exactly the time. It premieres on Hulu, so not available in Canada. I'm currently looking up. Apparently, there is a Disney Plus release date for it because they're both Disney properties, and so they could eventually release it onto Disney Plus. I do not have a current update.
No,
But
I didn't find one either. I was trying to find it for you. I was scouring how are you going to watch this in Canada. It was the same thing with MacGruber. MacGruber, every episode went out at the same time in America on Hulu as well, I believe. And here it's dropping once a week on Showcase. So I only get to see it I've only seen 2 episodes of it so far, and I've loved them both. But as for How I Met Your Father, I know that they were saying there's a possibility of end of March. But this is all rumor stuff. Who knows?
yeah, I have actually seen a tentative date. It's going to release on Disney or Star internationally, depending on where you fall.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there are some people. India gets it as soon as Wednesday, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people are waiting until the 9th of March. It seems Canada will get it, Disney Plus, so will Australia, New Zealand, the UK, number of different places all over the world are waiting for. I guess that's when all 10 episodes will be out. So that might be why.
It's only a 10 episode per season?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so that'll make it a little easier going and stuff like that. And if dip your toe into it, and if you don't like it, you don't have to keep going back to it, I guess. But I have a feeling you'd like it. I found out why there's such a discrepancy in dates when it comes to America and Canada and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's international dubbing. So even though we are predominantly speaking English country, even though It's only 50% of our national language. And places like Australia, New Zealand, again, English speaking, they have to wait for the shows to be dubbed in other nations as well before it can be released internationally, I guess. That's
okay. And I guess, like, maybe it would seem unfair to release it to a lot of Canada when you can't release it to Quebec. That just seems like you're just like, you guys can have it in a few weeks when we get to translating it. Like, that does seem a little unfair. I understand why those bylaws would be in place. It just is kind of lame in retrospect, because I want to watch this series.
Quebec has it pretty good. You know, they can do without shows. Give it to us English-speaking folks out west.
Plus, yes, and like studios, and in television's case, like networks, they have to like negotiate different different rights in every single country around the world. That's why certain things are on Netflix in one country and are not on it in another, because that company just didn't negotiate with Netflix in the right way, or they didn't negotiate with the governments in the proper ways, or it was just syndicated to somebody else. There's so many reasons for why TV isn't accessible, both new and old.
They were saying like about The Office and Seinfeld and stuff like that, making big deals about moving stuff around. It's like The Office is still on Netflix here. Like it wasn't, and it didn't come off of us, but it got taken off of Americans' Netflix for whatever reason. But the Peacock or something like that.
Also, yeah, Soda Pop said, and it took 2 years for WWE Network to come to Canada. And then I believe when they were trying to change it and put all of the WWE stuff on some streaming service, Canada was keeping the WWE Network because we didn't have access to that streaming service. I may be misremembering a bit of that.
Yeah, it's on Peacock in the States. It's on the WWE Network everywhere else in the world.
Yes, okay.
WWE has a network?
Yes, they've actually had one for a long time. I mean, it was different.
7 years.
And it originally was kind of essentially a blockbuster. You signed up for the access to pay-per-views, but that was because they control so much of their own IP and distribute it kind of themselves. They retain so much of that control.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm going to patiently be reading through some reviews as they drop this week. I've heard some early ones that have not been very favorable of How I Met Your Father, but I'm still planning on going in despite any review. I'm gonna give it its own fair shot.
I know that they hired, is it Hilary Duff?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Ted Mosby? What's the main character's name from How I Met Your Mother? Was it Ted Mosby?
Yes.
Okay.
And she plays the Ted role, yeah.
And Kim Cattrall is the Bob Saget style narrator, right?
Yes. The interesting thing in this one is she's actually on screen a lot. Other, like Bob Saget was just a voice and just in the intros and outros, occasional narration between cutscenes and shit. But yes, a big thing was that they wanted to change it a little bit, and so Kim Cattrall is actually visibly on screen and more intermittently throughout the show, from what I've heard.
Right, it's not just like the back of her head speaking to the kids kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, we'll see. They had but like, do they have like a Barney style character or side characters and stuff like that? It's all going to be about the ensemble going forward, right? I wonder if better off.
I have also heard. Yeah, I've also heard they're on their phones a lot more. And it makes sense because any show set in a bar in 2022 will have a lot of people on their phones.
Yeah, I guess so.
So yeah, they tend whenever they're like not the ones speaking, I'm sure there's a lot of improv of just like pull the phone out, pretend to text, rather than just picking up the drink or the fries, you know? Like.
Do you like the idea of them going with a named actress in the lead role, or would you have preferred more of a unknown actress to go in there?
It's really hard for me to say because like while the biggest name in How I Met Your Mother would be, and it's arguable, but they're all kind of their own niches, with Neil Patrick Harris and Broadway, and Jason Siegel was arguably the most famous because he had recently starred in some bigger movies. Then Allison Hannigan coming from American Pie, but it was the lead role who was unknown in that show.
Right.
And now it is kind of the opposite. Like I don't recognize most of the cast except for the two Ted Mosbys, Hillary and Kim Cattrall.
Right. Well,
so yeah, I really don't know. I don't think it really makes a difference as long as you're telling the right story. And I think Hillary Duff has proven time and time again she could be the like she can be that character. Like we have watched Hillary Duff Life of series many times since she's been about like 8 or whatever she started on the Disney Channel.
I've seen Hillary Duff act in one episode of Community. So that's it. I haven't seen anything else. I've never heard any of her music. I've never watched a TV show or a movie.
I see. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I watched Lizzie McGuire when I was a child, so it's kind of, and it was a childish show at the time, but it was fun.
Good.
But moving on to a pretty interesting thing I found over the course of the week that and a lot of people were kind of lambasting the SAG Awards this year. And I mean, I did see that a lot on the movie side. I didn't look into it super far on the television side. But Squid Game, the Netflix Korea original, made history by getting a number of different nominations. It's the first non-English series and first Korean series to get a nom. Is nominated for the ensemble cast. So the whole cast is nominated alongside Handmaid's Tale, The Morning Show, Succession, and Yellowstone.
Sure.
And that's rough going up against Succession because those two casts are very fun. But just before I continue with some random nominations and things, you actually watched a lot of the series over this week, yeah?
I watched the whole thing. So I'm what they call, in clinical terms, a fraidy cat. So I heard that it was scary and lots of people get killed. So it's like, not for me. And then you were saying like there's all these nominations and everyone, really enjoys this show. So it's like, fine. So I decided I was going to put it on during the day. By the end of the first episode, I was hooked. I watched every episode successively after that. Blew it all out in a day. I really enjoyed it. I watched it with the original language with subtitles and stuff like that. I couldn't imagine watching a dubbed version of that show. But I might go back and watch it just to see if I enjoy it just as much. That's how much I enjoyed the show. I'll watch it again. The two twists on there I got before they showed up. It's the only disappointing part about it. They kind of figure stuff out quick, but it honestly didn't matter. It didn't take away any of the enjoyment of the show. I know that if I ever see anybody play marbles again, my heart's going to break. That was one of the best episodes of television I've ever watched. I thoroughly enjoyed like up to the 8th, the 9th episode, like that last episode. I don't like how they kind of wrapped everything up at the end and stuff like that. I know that they'll be making a couple more series and stuff like that, so I'll be a day one watcher of those. But I don't. I wasn't a huge fan of the way they wrapped it up, but those first 8 episodes of getting there were fantastic.
Yeah, I have heard some. I haven't personally seen the series. I was at first kind of waiting for it to be completed and see what I was looking at. And another is I do a lot of watching television while I'm laying down, which is not very conducive to reading subtitles.
It was also a big factor in me putting it on during the day. It's at night and I'm having to read or whatever. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm going to fall asleep 100%.
Yeah.
But I made it all the way through because I'm very proud of myself.
And not to take it away, because I actually really enjoy shows with subtitles and like seeing the different acting. And one thing I also heard tangentially is that even in the subtitled version, there are pieces of Squid Game that people are missing because not everything can be translated perfectly.
Right.
And so there like were multiple articles all over the internet of like what you missed in Squid Game because you watched the non-Korean version of it, like the non-original. Yeah. I get that too. But released in September, Squid Game became Netflix's most watched series of all time.
I was surprised that it was September. I thought it was much earlier. Just in my head about how much people talked about the show, I figured for sure it must have been in the spring or something like that. And COVID months all kind of blend together. But yeah, I didn't think it was only 4 months old or whatever this is now, right?
Yes, it's just the fact that September 2021 was 9 years ago.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yes, a couple of individual nominations. There's some Golden Globe nominations. This show seems to be very, very acclaimed, especially by critics. I've seen a number of people mention that the ending is kind of not what they were expecting or necessarily like looking forward to, but it is one of those drawbacks to kind of studio pressure, because as they were, the way television gets made, usually you haven't made the finale by the time the premiere is airing.
Right.
And like you're about to make it, you're working on it, you're working towards it, but you end up finishing that final product around mid-season, because it's still 10 weeks out before that thing has to drop anyway.
Yeah.
But the issue with that was it was doing so well and it was so hyped and so liked that they kind of needed to push into directions of, can we get a season 2 in here?
Yeah.
And one thing I know about a lot of Korean dramas is that they tend not to do that. A Korean drama will tell a 8 or 10 episode story and then just be done with it. Like that is the end. And so, yeah, it's a little different that, and it kind of sounds from what I've heard that that's what the series ended up doing, is kind of adopting both philosophies simultaneously.
Yeah.
Trying to end something in the concise 10 frames that they had and also leave a door open. And it's hard to do both at once.
I would have been perfectly happy if they would have ended it there and didn't do season 2 or season 3. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing season 2 and season 3 now for sure.
And yeah. Lastly, we've got one other trailer to talk about that dropped this week, and this one was super surprising because I don't know what exactly to say about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, except for that it was before my time. Like I have never watched this show and understood what was going on. I cannot speak on it, but
He says it all in the theme. All you need to know about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he raps about in the first 30 seconds of the show. He started making.
I understand that part. I understand how he gets to Bel-Air. The rest of the show, I don't understand or understand the reason for it. But it's silly fun. Again, I assume it's a Lizzie McGuire thing. You watched it if it hit you in the moment, and if not, nobody will. I really don't know a lot of people who revisit Fresh Prince.
Yeah, it came out at a weird time for me. I think I was 18, 19 years old when it came out, 92, 93, something like that, right? So I wasn't watching very much television and stuff like that then. And I would catch an episode every once in a while. It's not like I didn't like the show, I did. It's just I wasn't watching much television now, but then. But now, like I can watch every episode whenever I want. Well, there you go. I was 17 years old, 16 years old. Now that I can watch it all the time, it isn't one that I've highly put on my list. It's like I got to watch a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode. I get it. I got the show and stuff like that, and there's great characters on it. Like I loved when Jazzy Jeff would show up and stuff like that. Carlton's a great fucking character. I like the two versions of Aunt Viv and how they call it back every once in a while. And Uncle Phil was a fantastic character. Like there's all good parts to the show. It's just a lot of television, and I've seen enough of that one where I get it. And lots of Will Smith trying to act dramatic and stuff like that at times too. I like the goofier episodes, obviously. I liked it when it would get sillier and stuff like that. Like when Jazzy Jeff would get thrown out of the house every episode. That was one of my favorite parts, probably. So this trailer for the new show coming up is going to be much different, a much different tone. But I think I'm more interested in this than I ever was in the sitcom version. This is going to be one of those rare things where I expect the new version of it to be better, a la like a Battlestar Galactica or something like that. Hopefully, I'm not saying it's going to be as good as people love the new version of Battlestar Galactica. I hope that it's on that kind of level where they really stepped up the game or whatever. Nice. Get the shit out of here.
And but yeah, this show does seem very different. Bel-Air, I have heard references to the CW, and so I will point out that it does seem a lot like Riverdale. When it's the gritty dramatic reboot of the Archie universe, and it is about, like, Archie is about as camp as you can be, and then Riverdale is about like the opposite side. It's still very campy, very cheesy, but it's like dark cheesy, not
chocolate shop.
Yeah, it gets robbed a number of times.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like the South Side Serpents are like a real gang. Like they do actual crimes.
I was going to say it's by Hot Dog eating all of Pop's burgers, and then Jughead with a great big full belly.
And yeah, like I do like that, and I think Taco has basically the right of it there. I like when they do that, and even though I will usually not advocate for the gritty reboot of most things, and it's because, like, I'd rather you just take, like Batman, for example, is the one that really springs to mind, of like, it's already very serious, and you don't need to like take it that far in order to take it seriously. But I do like when you take something non-serious and take it seriously, as he mentioned.
If you're going to do that, if you're going to take something that's kind of nutty or whatever, and then put a serious bent to it, it better be good. That's all. But this does look good. I am very much looking forward to this.
All right. So as as we wrap that up, any final thoughts? I do want to check this one out. I'm gonna, give it those 3 episodes before I dismissed it for sure.
WB show as well, or is it like a streaming show?
I believe it actually is a streaming show. I did not specifically look it up.
So they can get away. They're going to be able to get away with more than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was able to get over. Peacock.
Yes,
so yeah.
Peacock.
All right.
And speaking of that actually is true, and maybe not for Peacock. Like, each network can impose their own restrictions on it, and since Peacock and NBC are so synonymous, they may be forced into certain rules that NBC imposes on their shows.
Well,
but I do know How I Met Your Father did not go that route, and they do have a couple of, like, they can keep it slightly less than PG. It's like PG-12.
Okay. I think MacGruber is on Peacock as well in the States, and that is very much a hard R. Like, God damn it, does it deserve it? I love it. I love the new MacGruber stuff that's coming in.
And yeah, so not sure. I'll quickly look that up. But we can also start moving into things, instead of things we want to watch, things we actually have watched, or in my case, did not watch, because I only got a bit of the way through the first Peacemaker episode.
You son of a bitch.
I fully intended to watch it, and I just ran out of time. I was doing a lot of things this weekend, and I literally booted it up earlier today. I was watching the first episode.
Okay.
It was fun, though.
Have you watched the movie? Did you watch The Suicide Squad?
I actually did not watch the movie. Okay. I decided I wanted to watch the series not having watched the movie, just to see if it's different.
Yeah. I don't think you need to see it. I'm going to say that. I think they bring you up to speed for the most part in the first 5 minutes of what you need to know about Peacemaker. I really enjoyed it. I am surprised how much I like John Cena as an actor, as a comedic actor. I've never really watched much of his shows again. Like, again, there's some people on this network and maybe behind the curtain that really enjoys wrestling. Oh, that guy.
What's up?
I really enjoy wrestling, but I do not enjoy John Cena's wrestling.
Here's the thing: like, John Cena is really good at thinking on his feet. He does have great comedic chops.
Yes.
I've been watching the guy since for 20 years now. I've been watching him for over 20 years, and it's just like The Rock. Like, he's had those sensibilities from the beginning. It just had to transition properly over to big screen.
Yeah.
And I think he's reached that place now, particularly after Bumblebee and Blockers is when he finally came into his own.
I forgot I saw him in Bumblebee. He was in Bumblebee for a minute there.
I personally enjoyed it. He's playing the straight military type, but he's to me, he's finally Suicide Squad is finally the fruit of all his labors.
Yes, the Drax of it all, because Batista is also a former wrestler who I was not super thrilled on his in-ring performance, other than his actual work, because both of them true professionals, great at the actual wrestling. But
another guy that
it wasn't until they went to screen that I was like, wow, like the acting is also something different too, and maybe they were just always supposed to be cheesy characters and I wasn't in on the joke.
Well, I guess it also helps, like, I have no baseline on the Peacemaker. I don't know if he was like a big comic book style villain at all, or
I don't believe so. I think James Gunn went the same route with his Suicide Squad that he did with his Guardians, and he took the C and the D and the G list guys so that he could tell some interesting stories about them.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie, but I'm enjoying the show much more. Like, there's a point where he's at an apartment and he's going through the records, and it's all just old, corny 80s metal. And it's like, I own that. I own that. I own that. I own that. I owned every single album that he had on the thing or whatever, right? Or I owned it at one point and stuff like that. So I got the gist of the show right then. It's like, this is going to be fucking awesome. The next 2 episodes couldn't come quick enough. Blew them all out, even just before I watched Squid Game. That was a long day. That was a long television day. Let me tell you. That was a dozen hours of goddamn television. I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
And I've kind of come to really enjoy the kind of hybrid release schedule where shows have started dropping those first 2 or even 3 episodes of a show, and then you wait for the piecemeal week to week. Right. I find it gives all of us that chance to give it the 3-episode watch, and doesn't expect us to remember a show we watched 1 episode of for 3 weeks. Like, there's so much television that, like, you need to capture people's attention quicker.
And if it wasn't for that that scene with the records, do I watch the next one right away? Like, if they're like, do I wait a week or whatever to watch that next one? It's like, oh yeah, that show, okay. But as soon as that, I was like, what's next? What are they gonna play and stuff like that? So, yeah. But
then because I have access to more episodes, I was fully decided when the cab driver asked him for his helmet for cab fare. That's what I was like, okay, I'm going to watch the next episode and the 3rd one, because, like, I got to give it its shot now. Yeah. Just that tiny little joke, one little shot, it just makes me giggle.
The advantage, another advantage it has is that it becomes a water cooler show. Like, it gets people talking about it in between episodes. If everything's out there, everyone's going to be at a different point of watching. But present company excluded, it's pretty easy to put 3 episodes of television down in a week. And then after that, and then again, did you see Peacemaker this weekend? Did you see Peacemaker this weekend? Blah, blah, blah. So it's the same thing like Game of Thrones and stuff like that did. They were so good at it. Like, Game of Thrones would have felt completely different if they put them all out at once. It was a weekly show. Sunday night every week.
And like I mentioned in the pilot episode, I believe Game of Thrones doesn't have the same success that it did, the same audience that it did, if you put it on any other week except for Sunday or any other day. It's because it was the last thing you watched before going to bed, and then you woke up and you went to work on Monday, and everyone also did that Sunday night. There was nothing else to do Sunday night at 9 o'clock Eastern anyway. That was Game of Thrones time. But to quickly jump into one thing before we get into our lists, I did watch, because I've made sure to watch it every week. I intend to touch on Boba Fett for a minute or two as we go through the whole series, but when we get Taco on, we will also have a section on where I just ask him, what's this, what's that, who's that, where did they come from? But speaking of where did they come from, the new question is, where did they go? And that is to the Tuscan Raiders, because I was very sad watching this 3rd episode, and like we just watched these people all become the best of friends, and now there's no more.
The Tuscan Raiders were my favorite part of the whole show, and it got replaced, at least for this episode, with a bunch of 60s mods and stuff like that. I don't think I think I may have enjoyed that part a little more than some, except for the chase scene, which is the slowest chase scene I've ever seen. They might as well have been riding bikes. Like,
hey. It's not even the slowest chase scene in the Star Wars universe, because The Last Jedi, which I will defend, except for that chase scene.
That's true.
I really like The Last Jedi, but why were they crawling through space? I don't even get that.
There was, at least stakes to that. There was no real stakes to this. It's not like they were going to kill that guy or anything, because Boba Fett's Mr. Nice Guy now.
Yeah, I have really liked a lot of what this show has, and I not nice. I would say he's Mr. Fair. Like
Oh,
I really like that scene with the water credits and all of that, and how he recruits the people who have no work because he figures they should be working so they don't have to resort to theft. That is how you deal with theft, not not
I
by
was,
other means. You adjust the reason people are stealing, not punish the crime itself. But
I was pretty excited to see Stephen Root. Anytime you see Stephen Root
mm,
show up in a show, you know you're gonna have a good time. Uh,
yes.
I was more excited. Well, Taco's gonna get mad at me, but I was really excited about seeing the Chewbacca show up. The Chewbacca.
I've been trying not to bring it up because I was just gonna call him the Wookiee, and that seems just as bad too. And I I can't remember his exact name, but it was also an immaculate battle.
Oh,
Yes, Black
Carson.
Karstan.
Oh my god. Now I guess he's part of the cartoon show. Is that right? He's like Clone Wars or one of the other ones, Rebels or something like that. I know
I
that he's from another show, and that Filoni has something to do with him as well, right?
Yeah, and I just know that he is a known Star Wars character. Like Taco was talking about it last week. It's one of his favorite characters in the Star Wars universe. He's apparently, in some canons anyway, a bounty hunter, much like Boba Fett, and not a gladiator as they introduced him in this one. He was a gladiator, but he's also a lot more than that. I
Fucking badass. I know that.
Yeah, that was awesome. I honestly thought they were gonna keep him in the pit as the new Rancor. That would have been amusing, but there's kind of one of those anyway, so can't be too mad about it.
Adorable. Looked adorable.
Yes, I can't believe they made one of those things look adorable. If
That.
if I have one little nitpick,
Sure, sure.
the the mayor's assistant, the Twi'lek, I
Oh, yeah.
it really upsets me to see the Twi'leks on screen sometimes, because like it's a big, like, in practicality, it's a big like prosthetic, and like you can see the makeup and everything.
I'm trying
But
to go back to the original Star Wars and the one girl that gets thrown into the Sarlacc pit.
yes,
That's the only
yeah,
time I can remember one like a Twi'lek, I guess. Uh,
yeah, and
ooh,
there are a couple of them throughout the trilogies, but mostly it is just because that is a prosthetic and it is based off a design from the 1970s, and everything else is so CGI and so detailed. Like when you're looking at Black Kristan, and he is like a wildly different Wookiee than Chewbacca was.
is he?
Like
Is that CG? The Chewbacca
I don't know.
practical.
I know Chewbacca isn't.
No, no,
I'm
like
not
what the
sure
next
about
Black
Black Kristan, but it's probably most likely a combination of the two.
Black
Like
crust
they
Black crusting. Okay.
and I just thought that like they can enhance a lot of things with new effects, and Twi'leks, for some reason, it just has an uncanny valley feel to it. Maybe they just look a little too human to me, and they're a little off, and that's what's wrong.
Oh,
I don't know what it is. So they upset me.
wow.
uh,
Well, that's fine. Well, I have a feeling this guy's going to get his comeuppance at some point. Don't you
yeah,
worry.
yeah. I hope to see that, and I also I'm having a lot of fun. I like the way they introduced the Pike Syndicate, by introducing it in the past, and like he's dealing with them, and then later he's also dealing with them because now they're moving in. The mayor has given them access, and so I really like that they introduced them in one timeline, but the conflict is in another. That was great.
I had to think back to who was the Pike Syndicate again, and it's like, oh,
it's
that look like their faces or whatever, almost exact faces, and
the fish guys,
Tuscans, right? Yeah, those fish dudes.
Yeah,
I get it. I get it. Northern Pikes.
Yeah, I guess. As I said, the fish dudes. I also made that connection, but didn't make it earlier.
Attaboy.
I really enjoyed that. I want to see more. Like now it seems there are at least 3 different crime families. There's Boba's, there's the Pike Syndicate that has now been given access, and then there's the Huts. But we have
supposed to be the ruling kind of family, right?
Yes.
A couple of them, right?
Even though it was mentioned in that episode that Bib Fortuna kind of divvied up the territory and made alliances and all basically had people point guns at each other so that he could hold his tenuous power.
Okay. So there's 4 episodes left of the season. Is this a limited series? Like, is this one just it, or are they planning on doing multiple seasons of this, running along with the Mandalorian?
It's very difficult to tell because Disney plays a lot of their cards close to their chest. I mean, there were rumors about it, but there was no confirmation of a second Loki season until the mid-credits of the finale. Like, until they guaranteed that they will be back in the finale of that season, there wasn't actual confirmation that there was a second one.
They wanted to see how the action figures were being sold or something like that, maybe with Boba Fett.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that was specifically, and I had been pretty sure it was going, but it was all rumors until then.
Have you noticed any merchandise for Boba Fett anywhere? Like, usually, whenever a Star Wars would come out, there'd be a big push for toys and stuff like that. Like even with Mandalorian, I noticed quite a bit of toys and stuff like that coming out. But I haven't really seen anything. Well, it's not like I'm looking through toys, I guess. But like even on TV, there's no commercials or anything like that. Like pick up the new Black Chewbacca or whatever his name is.
True. And I think it is because they are aiming Boba Fett at a slightly more mature audience, a slightly older audience.
Isn't it a bunch of old dudes that buy these things anyways?
Yes. And I'm not saying that they won't eventually have merchandise
packaged so that they're worth more later, that's all.
But then also any of those collectors would tell you they're not buying the merchandise that we're talking about. The merchandise that actually moves is the dinky Walmart toys that are made on the cheap and sold to children. Right. That's what's going to make the bulk of the money. Sure. They're looking for the very well crafted ones that are collector's items, and those are worth a lot more, but made in much lower quantities. And I do think that there's probably a market for it. It just isn't one of those that is. And when they've got a number of different shows, they're going to bring out an Ahsoka show that will probably be more toy friendly for sure.
And Kenobi's getting a show here pretty soon too, right? They're going to have a bunch of live action Star Wars things going on there.
Yeah, and probably a number of different animated things too once they figure out what they're doing with that.
Oh, the Obi-Wan show is coming out in March, isn't it? Like the end of March?
I cannot remember. The dates honestly all bleed together. I often find out shows premiere when
no
Netflix
date,
tells
just
me
says
to do.
2022.
Oh, okay, because there hasn't been a trailer, anything for it. Not even like a sneak preview. I think there may have been a teaser trailer or something like that, right?
And I guess we can assume it's after the end of March, because we did just get a trailer for Moon Knight, and that is premiering at the end of March.
What did you think?
I think we will actually hold Moon Knight until another day, but I really did like the trailer. I want a trailer. Yeah. Because this was a teaser. Like, it's teasing the character, but I didn't learn anything. Like, what I know about Moon Knight is that he has many different personalities, and he sees through different illusions. Like he saw the mummy, like he saw different things, and I don't know. I didn't learn anything new, so I don't feel teased. I'm waiting for a trailer.
I learned that I'm all of a sudden interested in Moon Knight, and I had no idea who that was before.
Yeah, it's one of those really niche ones that, like, honestly, this would have gone excellently along, even though they dropped the ball on some of the defenders, Iron Fist. But we could have seen that in a different universe where Netflix kept the TV rights of Marvel and they didn't all get consolidated by Disney. You may have seen a Moon Knight be introduced on a Netflix show and then kind of added into the Defenders a little bit.
Sure.
And yes, one of the darker heroes that was always kind of aimed at a more mature, more adult audience, even as comics were more vulgar than others, which is why, much like Deadpool and the like, they would have to bring his character down when he would star in like main Marvel brands.
Right.
And so, yeah, like not often an X-Man or an Avenger, but a very fun hero nonetheless.
Good. Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, shall we get into our little game here? Not really a game, but yeah, and that is the cool thing. Like, I like that people are going to be calling him different names throughout the show, and the one thing I'm interested to see is how they play it differently from Legion, which was also a show about, and we do know they are doing it differently because he's not seeing other versions, like he's not seeing people that aren't there as Legion was. Legion was a Fox show that was done on it's an X-Men character.
Okay.
And he has also multiple personalities, or it might just be hallucinations, but it's literally other people. One of them is played by Aubrey Plaza, and she's just there, and nobody else sees her.
All right. All right. Good.
But yeah, out of that for a little bit, our main segment today, we're gonna do, like, again, not a definitive top 10 list of comedies. I honestly could have thought of 4 or 5 more that I couldn't put on this list but wanted to. But
done dozens more.
And yeah, so I'll take the lead at least, since I did rank them in a basic order. But
Yep.
I have some reasons for different rankings, and then others that I could not give you a reason, and you could move it 3 places up or down, and I'd be like, yeah, it belongs there. And yeah, and then you can just, like, if you have the same show on your list, we can talk about it at that point, or you could just bring up another one as well.
Sure.
Okay. So going from number 10, I have a show. Honestly, the reason I have this so low is that I have never got to watch it, like, concurrently, because, like, access to the channel, and it's also been running for so long, and yeah, it's just not a very accessible show, not a lot of syndication. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay, sure.
One of my favorite things about this show is when I think it's Mac, the guy who plays Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Since they're all like the writing team as well. The cast is also like the creative team. So at one point he had the crazy idea that they should all just put on 40 pounds for the next season, and they should all just come in as like fatter versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And nobody else wanted to do it, so he just did it on his own anyway. And it's just like one of those things of like, oh no, I swear to God this is going to be funny, and you just stick to your guns. And that's what I feel a lot of when I see Always Sunny, and I like every episode that I watch, and it's one of those that, like Parks and Rec is another honorable mention in this slot. I never got to watch every episode and never went back to chain the whole thing.
It's been going now for, I think this is the 16th season. They don't do they're not 23 episode seasons or anything like that. One of the great things about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is it's non-linear, really. You can watch whatever episode. You don't have to watch them in order. You can pick it up wherever you want. It has a couple of the funniest episodes I've ever seen of any television show. There's an episode where they go back to the American Revolution and stuff like that with Rickety Cricket was a British so fucking funny. The whole Dayman thing. The Dayman cometh. There's Charlie writes a musical to try and win over the waitress, and it's some of the funniest stuff you ever seen. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, one of the most gift-worthy television shows. The fans of the show know every single line for whatever reason or whatever. But
and literally everyone in the world knows that Charlie meme of him at the board trying to explain a thing. And then I love that he's just an even more insane version of that character in Pacific Rim.
Oh, okay. All right.
Charlie's in it, and he just plays an insane version of Charlie, who is also like a science or a statistician, I think he is. And so he just plays an even crazier version of a crazy character.
A show that didn't make my list, but is nonetheless a worthy show is AP Bio, and that show is basically just Dennis as a substitute teacher. It is fantastic, but not on this list.
Go ahead.
I'm going to start with a show that launched an entire network. I think it was 1987. I was living in a small town in Saskatchewan, had only 3 channels, but with an antenna, once in a while you could pick up a new station called Fox. And Sunday nights, I believe it was a show unlike any other show on television called Married with Children. Married with Children, you look back now and it's crass, gross, sexist, misogynistic. It was all those things. But to a 13-year-old boy out in the middle of the country, it was one of the funniest things in the entire world. There's so many things you take for granted now, like the flushing of a toilet. It never happened before that I can remember ever, except for on Married with Children. That's where all of this stuff started. It was just gross out adult humor aimed at prepubescent morons like me. I'm not sure if you've ever seen an episode of Married with Children. I am sure it doesn't hold up the way it used to. But the first season or two with them getting their legs under them, you could probably skip. And it's another show who really cares about the continuity. You can pick up any episode and you get what the show is. It's done irreparable damage to shoe salesmen everywhere.
And I definitely like I recognize that picture of the cast, but I cannot like recall any of the show.
Yeah, it's an older picture with their second dog. Their first dog, Buck, was again a talking dog. Well, imaginary talking dog or whatever. But yeah, Buck was one of the best characters on the entire show.
And yeah, so as we move into, I've got a number 9 here, and for similar reasons, I could argue that this goes higher on the list, but it's one of those ones that I saw the whole show, but I can't rewatch it as much as I love rewatching a lot of comedies, and I don't know whether it's the week to week stuff or the storyline plot that is harder to track, but right. I have trouble with The Office myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the most successful comedies of all time.
Sure.
It's literally up there with Friends as like the reason people had Netflix, the reason people signed up for it in the first place.
Right.
There is enough people who watch like The Office or Friends to make Netflix the biggest streaming service in the world. And that's why losing them, quote unquote, was the biggest deal for them.
Right.
But while I love Steve Carell, I really do not like the Michael character. And I honestly, when like the main character, I get that he's supposed to be an antagonist most of the time. But when the main character is the least likable part of the show, it's hard for me to get into it.
It's another show that ran forever, and I've seen 2 episodes of it. But, the original episodes, like, to sound like one of those fucking assholes, I watched the original British version of The Office multiple times. I owned it on DVD. I've watched it since it came out on Netflix a bunch of times. And I love the British version of The Office. It's just something about the American version I couldn't get into. But everyone says you have to push through. You have to push through that first season. After that, it gets its own legs, I guess, or whatever, right? And it becomes its own show. I
agree with that.
It's always one of those shows. It's like, God damn it, I'm gonna friggin' try, and then I start from the beginning, and I get through those 2 episodes. It's like, there's something else. There's always something else for me. But one day I'm gonna, hunker down and try and get to it. But I don't know. We'll see. Oh, we got so
okay.
Many.
We're gonna talk about a couple of those. Oddly, I have only one of those shows in the exact same spot as Brian, and I want to talk about it in relation to The Office, but we'll get to it later.
Sure.
Do you have another one you want to bring up?
Yeah, I got another one. Continuing in the Ed O'Neill vein, I have the other show that he's known for, and these days probably more well known for. Of course, this show probably became more successful because of Phil Dunphy than for Ed O'Neill's character. I'm talking about Modern Family.
Oh, yeah.
One of the few shows that I was able to watch while it was going on. It had just enough silliness to keep me interested. To watch an entire series of a show and not have it on there, like while it's being aired, would have been a disservice to it. They just didn't ever have very many bad episodes. There was always something to it that was fun.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of bad episodes, my number 8 actually does have some bad episodes, which is why I had to rank it kind of low. But I wanted to force a 40-minute show onto this list. Okay. Comedies tend to run 30 minutes or 22. And but I really wanted to get that 44 one because, and this one is actually much longer than that. It's a Showtime show, so it runs most of the hour, and that is Shameless. Again, another U.S. show that is a spin-off of a UK show. Shameless, I think I actually started watching it as it started airing. It may have been in its second season, and I had to like catch up to the second season and then go from there. But my brothers and I used to watch this show, and kind of there's a lot of reasons that we enjoyed it. Like, we are a giant Irish family, like the Gallaghers in the show. And like there's a lot of similarities that come with that. And just like some of the characters are people we knew. I mean, some of the characters in Shameless are outrageous. So not counting like the Mickeys, but I really liked the show. I thought like most of the characters were very likable, and I was very disappointed when it finally got to Netflix. And you don't know how many people tried to recommend this show to me, and I was just like, yes, I've been watching it for 7 years.
Oh, you got to be snooty. You got to be snooty. Very nice.
Yeah, and I'm not even snooty, but it's always just like, oh, I watched this show and it's like right up your alley. I'm sure you'd love it. And I was like, yeah, I do.
I had never seen the American version. I've seen a few episodes, like Showcase in Canada had the British version on. I saw a few episodes of that, and it was fine. And then I heard that, you know, that it was a United States version was coming and stuff like that, but I didn't have a way to watch it. I didn't have Showtime or whatever it was. So it was just something I didn't start watching. And when it came to Netflix, by the time it came to Netflix, it was always 6 or 7 years deep, right? So I just never jumped on it, but I have friends that absolutely love the show. So I can understand why it would be in a top 10, but no, it's just something I've never gotten into.
Yeah, and it kind of there's a comment from Taco in the chat. Yeah, he loved Shameless for a long time, but it went downhill, gets kind of repetitive. That is very true, and one thing I do enjoy about the later seasons is they'll take somebody's story and give it to somebody else. Like there's a lot of similarities. Oh, I have an alarm going off apparently. There's a lot of similarities between like certain stories that Lip and Ian go through in the early seasons, and then what Carl goes through in the later seasons. And there's an analog between Fiona and Debbie in much the same way. And so I like some of that, but then there is also the repetition of some of the older characters just keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and it does get kind of old and repetitive of like, yeah, how many times is Lip going to be kicked out of school is a question you ask yourself a lot in about season 4, and there's still a few more seasons of it.
Believe me, Daniel, you can get kicked out of school a lot.
Yes, because he's like an extremely gifted student. Like, people keep trying to get him in, and he just doesn't get to it. So I'm actually surprised that we've gone. I mean, the lower 10 I thought would be a wider variety, and the top 5 I think are going to be closer, but no show's the same so far.
Nothing the same. Let's see how my next one goes. Again, show that started on Fox back well before you were born. Difference is it is still going. I think it's the longest running, maybe weekly scripted show in television history by now. It's in its 30-something season, I believe. One of the most
2 years younger than me, so we're 32 years.
I was 16 or so. Actually, I remember it when it first started coming out on the Tracy Ullman Show, another show that started on Fox.
For that, 1987 for the first episode of the show you're talking about.
Holy shit! Again, a show that even though I haven't watched it in 16 years, it had 16 years before that where you were watching it all the time. and just some of the most memorable television episodes of all time. And it's a type of show where I don't really pay too much attention in cartoons. The Simpsons, I'll put some of the most memorable characters of all time just in that picture, and it's just like, and that's half the goddamn cast. Like I didn't see Troy McClure in there. Krusty's there on the end. Yeah. Some of the just Homer Simpson might be one of the most famous television characters of all time, and he's not a real person.
And yeah, I grew up watching The Simpsons, both like as it aired the new episodes and watching the syndication episodes, because The Simpsons made so much goddamn money for so many people. But one of my brothers was an avid Simpsons fan. If my mom likes to joke that if he got the remote, The Simpsons was going on the television, because somewhere, if you had satellite, and growing up like we did, if you had a satellite connection, somewhere was a channel playing The Simpsons. You could almost always find it.
I was flying to Europe to visit my friend, and I was taking a bus from Heathrow up to Stansted Airport. In the bus, they were playing The Simpsons. It was just, on everywhere all the time.
Well, like, let's not forget, you'll remember this, Stark. Think about the merchandise craze in the early days.
And also
T-shirts, keychains, videos, video games.
The record.
And you could also use it as marketing.
Yeah.
You could use it as marketing by basically purchasing the right 2 or 3 episodes in syndication. You could air like a Treehouse of Horror around the Halloween time, and if you got the right one and you paid enough for it, you could boost a new channel very quickly by just having The Simpsons on.
The Simpsons are the direct reason why Rupert Murdoch is building a laser on the moon right now.
Absolutely. And also, that's probably a Simpsons episode.
Yes, it would be. Plus, they would have predicted.
And let's not forget all the predictions they ended up doing that ended up coming true.
They are sorcerers, every single one of them, from Conan O'Brien on up.
And so, speaking of people building lasers on the moon, I want to talk about some tech giants for a little bit. One show that, again, my brothers and I started watching on HBO is this little show called Silicon Valley.
Love it.
Stars Thomas Middleditch and a cast of some of the funniest characters ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the exception of TJ Miller, I love everybody in this photo right now. This cast is incredible. There are some of the funniest people working. Thomas,
TJ Miller?
I wasn't a super big fan of his before all of the controversies about him, so I was just like, perfect. This is just. But I found Silicon Valley to be one of the funniest shows ever, and this is where our show earns its explicit rating, because even just describing this scene requires some language here. Sure. Because like one of the first few episodes too, and it's in the first season. They're trying to do like a tech conference, and their freaking algorithm is not working. It's broken. It's the day of, and they're having this argument about like, how are we going to get people to invest? And someone suggests that they should just start giving hand jobs or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of them is just like, what are we going to do? Just jack off everybody in the whole crowd? And then they start doing the math like on their whiteboard of ideas. And they're just like, okay, so like if about half of the audience is male, and then someone goes like, no, this is a tech conference, it's going to be more male. And there's okay, so an average of like 70%. And then they're trying to decide like the difference, the efficiencies of like sizes versus heights of people versus how quickly you can get this whole task done. And it is just the most absurd craziness I've ever watched on television. And I was just, we're just sitting there cackling the whole time because these guys are all incredible.
I love the show as well. Yeah, Silicon Valley was a great show. I liked everybody on the show. I love. I can't remember the name of the character. But one of them is a Satanist and stuff like that. And, Camille introduced Camille Nanjiani to a much broader audience and stuff like that. I'd listened to some of his stand-up stuff before that, but Silicon Valley, I think, is what really put him into people's heads and stuff like that. That this guy's funny.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I knew Kumail prior to Silicon Valley, and when he was casted, I was like, oh my god, like I'm excited to see Kumail in this. And
yeah, it was an ensemble show that worked on every level. Every interaction that anybody had, you could pair off anybody on that show, and it would be a great show.
Also was like just perfect timing of like the early 2010s, as like literally in the world, Facebook was taking over the entire globe and Amazon was also trying to take over the entire globe, and somehow we let both of them succeed. But we ended up with the like we ended up knowing way too much about frickin' tech giants than we ever needed to know. And so Silicon Valley just hit at the perfect time where you were already saturated with all of that information from the real world, but this got to make fun of it.
All right.
Yes, go ahead.
My next show, we had talked about The Office previously, how I was a big fan of the British Office. Well, Ricky Gervais' follow-up to that was a show called Extras. And for 2 seasons, and I think there was a Christmas episode as well, because, English thing, it always had to have a Christmas episode for whatever reason. If you haven't seen the show, Ricky is a working extra in London. He gets extra money. He's always trying to get the next big thing. He's trying to get he's writing a show and he's hoping that he can get it made. His Stephen Merchant is his agent, his horrible agent, and he has his buddy Maggie that he brings onto the shows as well. Some of the absolute funniest scenes I've ever seen on television are in this show. There's one episode where Stephen Merchant's character makes dinner for Maggie on a date and stuff like that, and has gastrointestinal issues creep up. There's an episode where Patrick Stewart lays out his plans for this television show he's writing, or this movie he's writing, where he's basically Charles Xavier, except for he makes his clothes pop off. Daniel Radcliffe trying to act like a big man and stuff like that as well. One, it is 13 episodes of the absolute funniest television I've ever watched. I would have put it higher. I just wanted more episodes. You wanted more in this world. The show, of course, Ricky is made to compromise on the vision of his show or whatever, and it becomes a one-liner show called "Are You Having a Laugh?" Coldplay shows up on the show for some reason. Yes, if you've never seen Extras, it is a guaranteed must-watch. It is, every single episode is gut-busting funny.
Yeah. I've seen a little bit of it. I haven't got to watch all of the episodes, mostly because by the time I had heard about the show, it was done.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, it's one of those ones that access to it has limited my ability to watch it.
I too. I was just looking the other day, goddamn, I want to watch Extras again. I had the DVDs, but I've moved so many times that they've just gone missing. And I looked through Prime, I looked through Netflix, I've looked through Disney Plus, I've looked through Crave up here, which is HBO Max in the States, and you cannot find it anywhere, and it drives me bananas. And it's not on Blu-ray; it's on DVD. Like, I can pick up the DVDs again, but how do they not have an updated version of that show? It is a frigging shame.
Yeah, and so to move on to this one was a streaming only show. This is one of the newer shows on my list.
Okay.
One thing everybody is awkward about, and so makes great comedy, is hormones and just being a teenager in general. And Big Mouth show with, like, again, some of the funniest people in the world. John Mulaney, Nick Kroll, like, everyone in this show is insanely talented, insanely funny. Jason Mantzoukas is just freaking insane. He's actually in so many of the shows that I'm going to bring up in these next few on my list.
We got
really, really, I love Big Mouth. I love the concept of the invisible hormone monsters that nobody can see, but I guess everybody can see. Like, we've started as it gets further. We do know that the adults had hormone monsters and believe in them, and just, like, gaslight the kids. I don't get it. Like,
it's a show where I know everybody on it. In fact, most of the cast is on a show that will be appearing later in my list. I don't know if it's just because it's a cartoon that I just have that, I don't know, not like a bias against it, maybe, but not a bias. It's not like I refuse to watch it. It's just something I just haven't watched, like something I've never decided, you know what, it's time to watch Big Mouth for me. But I know people who love the show. And it's been going now, 4 or 5 seasons, so it has its fans for sure.
Yeah, it just finished season 5. One of the very funny things that they did was they put out a special episode in the middle of a year at one point while they were off, and they did, like, a Valentine's Day episode, and that is the perfect, like, to fit, like, all of the teens and their angst and everything. It made everybody a nervous wreck. I think it was, like, I'm not sure, I might be wrong, but it may have been like a double or even triple episode, like almost 90 minutes. Like, if
a movie.
Yeah, and it was just like, here, we're just doing a random thing because we had a funny idea. And also, the studio who does the animation of this show is one I really enjoy. Titmouse does Big Mouth. They did Metalocalypse back in the day.
Okay.
They've worked on a lot of different animation, and they're doing one animated show that I'll be talking about on next week's episode, which is the Dungeons and Dragons Critical Role show. And it's a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that is played on Twitch by a bunch of voice actors, and now they're making an animated series about that, the cast of characters. But that I really wanted to talk about Big Mouth, one, so I could also talk about Titmouse, because I think their animation, and yes, hilarious name, obviously, but their animation is very interesting. They're doing something very cool.
Nice. All right. Well, moving on. Moving on to a show that defined sitcoms in the 90s, besides the one that was basically a soap opera. This one was absolute must-watch TV in the era of must-watch TV. The finale may not have stuck the landing, but there was however many seasons, 7, 8 seasons of pure goddamn comedic gold. So I have Seinfeld next on mine. One of the most quotable shows in the history of television. I don't know why Seinfeld decided that was going to be it for him. I wish he would have kept going on like he did the Bee movie. I think that's the only other television besides him interviewing comedians in cars or whatever afterwards. But it's just a show that
Can
works.
you blame him? You know how much money that dude makes off syndication? Like, they can retire all and not work a day in their life again, and they're great grandchildren.
Tell that to Matt Groening, okay? It didn't stop him.
He kept going. They should do.
He made 2 other shows.
A cartoon version. Well, on Curb Your Enthusiasm, they did get together again. They did a few episodes or whatever. That was part of that arc and stuff like that, which was great. But Seinfeld was the show where Thursday nights you made sure you were watching Seinfeld. At least through I guess there was Friends at the same time. And that was for, my girlfriend at the time, all her friends would love Friends, so they'd watch it. And then I'd have to stick around till 8 o'clock so I could watch Seinfeld and stuff like that. George Costanza, an all-time character in comedies, which is basically just Larry David. Kramer, again, Newman, Elaine. And every single character had their chance to shine on that show. There was nobody just direct. There was no anchors. Everybody was giving comedic gold every single week. Seinfeld, still to this day, one of the most quotable shows in the world. And just like throwaway things, like people still say "no soup for you," and just if there's no soup, fine, but no soup for you, come
on. Yeah.
What's that?
Seinfeld is another one of those that I missed the train on, and it's there are some things, especially in comedies, that going backwards is harder because they were just doing less at the time. They weren't telling a 22 episode story as well as telling individual ones, as well as doing a bunch of crazy things that your Modern Families and your Communities and your How I Met Your Mothers nowadays, they all hit all of these different beats. And it's because comedy is an amalgam of everything that came before it. It always has been. Something funny needs to happen before you can tell a joke about it.
Right.
And speaking of a newer comedy, one that does hit all of those veins, and to bring back to Brian's comment, this is our one thing on our list that is exact same and in the same spot. It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That gif is worth interrupting, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
before we go to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I just want to say, I can't have a hard time watching full episodes of Seinfeld just because it's not for me. But I love watching clips, and that is one of my favorite clips.
And yes, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I loved watching this show. I watched it as it aired, every single episode, with the switching networks and all of that. One thing I really needed to mention about this show was that sometimes, unlike The Office, the first season does hit on every single cylinder.
Yep.
After episode 1, Brooklyn Nine-Nine got its back 9 order. Fox had 13 episodes, and then it got its back 9. We're going to 22. Mm-hmm. After episode 2, it was one of Fox's highest watched comedies for an episode 2. And by episode 3, Fox had decided Brooklyn Nine-Nine was going to be their show that they played directly after the Super Bowl. When the most people on planet Earth are watching their channel in any possible moment, that is the show they decided to put on, was this comedy in its first season. I was flabbergasted by some of the performances on this show, and honestly, they don't make light of a lot of the issues that they deal with, as well as the fact that people aren't the biggest fans of police officers. And I found
they rewrote the first 4 or 5 episodes of their final season just to accommodate what was happening, and rightfully so. Like, people knew, like, fuck the police and all that stuff was happening right now, so they paid attention. And it had, I think, the second last season it was just rehashing old episodes. It wasn't that great. I really enjoyed the final season. I thought they stuck the landing much better than a few of the shows on the list did. But every year with the Halloween heist, that was must watch episodes of television every year. And again, it was silly enough that I was gonna watch every single week. Like, there was no on a very special Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It was always there was going to be something silly.
And one thing I liked that it learned from How I Met Your Mother, because again, comedy always moves forward. When you watch episode 1, you know that the characters of Jake and Amy are going to get together by the end of the season. It's your Jim and Pam story. It's your Ted and Robin. It's whatever placement you want to give it. But they also both establish that and let it slow build. Like, they establish like a sort of flirtation that does manage to gradually turn into a proper, like, love story almost. And I do really enjoyed that. Do you have Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or are we still going like 6 for 6 now?
I didn't have Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but at any, like, it could have been top 5 even. It was it's that good of a show. It's just, I just wrote down a bunch of shows just to say I really if I would have kept going after I got 10, it would have been that one. There would have been a few other ones. So next on my list is the first 2 shows from Tina Fey. This one, again, it's just silly. There is, again, no very special episodes of this show. I think this is the first, well, no, Extras is streaming. This is the first Netflix streaming show, and I think the only Netflix streaming show that I have on my list. I started watching this show because one series ended and it recommended it. I liked the trailer, so I said, sure. I watched every single episode, and their Choose Your Own Adventure movie I thought was fantastic as well. The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is on my list next. Titus Andromedon, one of the funniest characters, I think.
Is that Carol Kane?
Oh, yeah. Landlord. It's a show which the characters build and build and build and stuff like that, and just make crazier. It's a show where you have to watch it from the beginning to get it. But John Hamm plays the cultish kind of leader that held Kimmy and 3 other women in this bunker in Illinois, I think, something like that. Told them that the world had come to an end and stuff like that. So they spent 20 years in a bunker, and this is what happens when they're released. And it isn't about freaking out. It's just silliness from the first episode right through to the end. There's I'm not a big fan of getting to the emotional heart of stuff like that. Could care less. I just want silly bullshit, and it delivered every episode.
Yeah, I really liked Kimmy Schmidt. Basically the same thing as if I was writing a couple more onto this list. Definitely would have made its way on.
Yep.
I also sadly had to leave Mrs. Maisel off, and just a shout out to that show because it is so good.
Yeah.
But I put it on my top 10 defining shows.
But that is a phenomenal show.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, more specifically because it's stand-up comedy, but it was worthy of a defining top 10 and not necessarily a top 10 of comedies. But let's move on to my number 4. And this show, again, another animated show, another one that tends to predict the future and takes place in the future, created by Matt Groening. We have Futurama.
Love it.
Again, much like The Simpsons, but I did grow up on Futurama. I watched every single episode. I have seen every episode at least multiple times. The movies, less than the episodes themselves, but I've at least seen the movies multiple times, each one as well.
They come into seasons now, right? They made them 4 parts into seasons, right? Like the Beast.
I think so. I think so, but at least the last time I watched them, they were still just like an hour, or they're slightly more than 90. I would say they're about like 110 minutes, right. And I watched them in solid one-piece chunks. But on top of that, I could not I couldn't fathom a show like Futurama today. No show was canceled more often than this show. No show was resurrected more than this show.
Maybe one more.
Community came close. They came close, but I don't think they quite break the record. Yeah. But I had a tweet Facebook message from like 10 years ago that came up on my feed back in the earlier this year, and it was just like, oh, is anybody or they canceled Futurama, and do you think any new network is going to pick it up? And then I just reposted this 10 or 12 years later, and I was just like, hey, this is the only show that I would believe could come back tomorrow.
Well, it's not like the characters are going to age. Everyone's going
to. That is also the great thing about animation. Yes.
It's like Bart Simpson is, a 40-year-old trapped in a 11-year-old's body. The same with Fry.
Fry's an 11-year-old trapped in a 40-year-old's body.
That's true.
But yes, moving on. We got.
Let's see. Is this number 3 for me? Number 4.
It's technically number 4.
Number 4. And to go back-to-back Tina Fey shows. The first show she did after leaving Saturday Night Live. Mm-hmm. Some of the best characters on a network show, I think, ever. 30 Rock. And it's just, just supporting characters and stuff like Dr. Spaceman is one of the funniest characters ever on TV. I love the live episodes when they would break. It made a star again out of Alec Baldwin. Tracy Morgan was hilarious every episode. I still reference things like Who's Dat Ninja. It's a show that got better with age as well. That last season was maybe not the best, but they had been running a long time. It's one of the most rewatchable sitcoms, especially just network sitcoms. I think ever made. And it was starring in about 2 women in a time where those kind of shows just weren't happening. People sitcoms were not popular or not as popular with 2 female leads, but this show delivered. Alec Baldwin is a supporting player in this. He wasn't the star of the show. He became a star because he made, the best of what he had and became a much bigger part of the show later on. But 30 Rock is, again, a show that I will revisit every year. I will not go more than a year without having to watch an episode of 30 Rock for sure.
Yeah. And honestly, we are getting a little long in the episode here, and I do need to head out to work myself. And also, again, I have such a big trouble listing these top 3, so I do kind of want to do them together.
Go ahead.
And it basically comes down to the ordering, and we've talked about all these shows. They're like the Community. We have so yes, we have our Community episodes. We have our Good Place that I talked about, one of my favorite comedies, and then we have my number 1 is How I Met Your Mother, because of like the personal connection to it. I honestly, any of these shows could be chosen as the best of the 3. Any of them could move back and forth depending on how I feel and which one I'm watching. But Community especially has the bonus of every director in that show is a famous director now. Like, watching episodes of a silly sitcom like Advanced Warfare, and they're directed by the frickin' Russo brothers. And like, if you were to tell me when I was watching that show on NBC, like, just a glimpse into the future, here's what Alison Brie is up to, and she's like the least frickin', she's of the elite tier of this show, she's the lowest rank. And then like if you told me frickin' Donald Glover is going to be the most talented person artistically on the planet, he's going to write, he's going to produce, he's going to sing, he's going to act, he's going to do anything you can imagine that is art, Donald Glover is going to do that.
Yeah.
And then also that the Russos are going to create the like biggest moments of the MCU.
We got lucky that Fox dropped the ball on Arrested Development, and that's how the Russo brothers were able to come over and do so much Community.
Yeah.
Community, again, was my number 1. It is the television show, besides Buffy, that I've watched the most. It is comfort viewing for me. It was something where if I wanted to go to sleep at night, I'd put on Community. I knew every single episode, every single line in it. It would just relax me, and I'd be able to fall asleep. Except, the part when I'm genuinely still snickering. And it's such weird things. Like there's one part where Abed says to Jeff, like, "Jeff, you're gold blooming," and he goes, yeah, I don't know what you're saying. I laugh every time. Community. Goddamn, that 4th season, even the Gas Leak season, has great parts. It has great moments.
Yes, actually.
Those first 3 seasons, like moving up to Chang taking over as some kind of warlord and having a song, like children sing songs about him. Fantastic. Like a show that absolutely will not take anything seriously. Has to be my number 1 favorite show of all time. Number 2, I had The League for the exact same reason. The League, almost completely unscripted, almost completely ad-libbed. There was a premise, and then they got some of the best ad-libbers in Hollywood. Said, "Here, go." And again, some of the best quotes, some of the best gifts. If I'm ever getting day drunk, I'll say, "Get ready to sing my dick," because it's something that's said in the show. Taco singing a song about how his niece was conceived at her sixth birthday and stuff like that. The show did not give a shit, and it was funny every single goddamn episode. So that was easily number 2 for me. Number 3, I had Parks and Rec, but Parks and Rec, 30 Rock, all these shows could be interchangeable. I like very few shows where you have to have the narrative going through and stuff like that. Parks and Rec, the one comedy where I think it works everything kind of bled on, except for, you can drop like the first season. The first season was 6 episodes. They didn't know what they had. You get into the second episode and they start realizing who these characters are. Again, Nick Offerman's character is how you define Nick Offerman these days.
His character, his guest role on Brooklyn Nine-Nine was one of the funniest things ever. I love that whole interaction because him and Andre Braugher kind of play the same straight man character, and it's a straight man. And here's actually the greatest part about it is it's two gay men, straight men, having a competition of who is the straighter man. And this is the most confusing and meta thing ever outside of Community. And I love Nick Offerman. Parks and Rec, again, it's one of those shows that I never got to watch every concurrent episode of it, but whenever I would watch it, I love that show too.
Yeah, and that's a watching show as well.
So that concludes our top 10s. We, again, managed to list 19 shows across the two of us. Our only double was Community.
Yeah.
And so that was very fun. Even those ones that I haven't seen, I know enough about them that it's one of those things that, like, if for whatever reason there comes a year that we don't get comedies that I'm interested in, I'm gonna go back and watch half of those shows that you listed.
Yeah.
But
just turn your friggin' brain off and enjoy yourself for 22 minutes.
Yeah.
It is not a huge commitment to make yourself happy for a little bit of time in your day just by watching some of these shows, for sure.
And so I hope everybody had fun coming on this journey with us. I definitely want to thank Brian and anyone else who was leaving their lists in the chat. And I really, going forward, when we do like these fun little things, I will try and get them announced with our promo rather than our going live episode, so that we can get our chat a lot more involved in these processes.
We're rookies at this stuff. This is only our 3rd episode. We have no goddamn clue what we're doing. We're just kind of rolling with it here.
Yep. So if
like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and tune into the Northern Entertainment Group. Like there's people on this network that actually know what they're doing. They're not two dumb schlubs like us, that's for sure. Lots of Schmodown related content, wrestling related content, Doctor Who related content every Wednesday, I believe. Which I will not feature in, but I do enjoy. I actually do like Doctor Who. But yeah, lots of stuff. There's a show on all the time, it seems. Check them all out.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week.